All right, well, we're actually beginning a two-part series on the gospel in this training. And you may say to yourself, one part sounds like a little bit much. Why are we doing a two-part series on the gospel? Well, I think this quote really highlights it the best. Mike Breen, in his missionary training with 3DM, said this, and I thought it was such a powerful way of putting it. He said, "Another reason why we need to focus on the gospel is that many of us have inherited a truncated version of the gospel that doesn't tell the whole story of the good news of Jesus. If missional communities are going to be good news communities and proclaim the gospel effectively, we need to have a fuller, more robust picture of what the gospel actually is." Now, I thought this was such a powerful kind of quote that he had. And the reason I thought it was so powerful is because that actually tracks with my own experience with the gospel. See, I was a church planner for about 7 years after going to 4 years of seminary and talking all about the law and the gospel at my very good Lutheran seminary, right? So now I've got all that seminary experience. I've got 7 years of church planting experience, and I just moved to New Jersey. And so I decided that I would do a church plant training so I could learn what it was like to plant a church in the Northeast and in the middle of a mega kind of city. So I go to Cities training, Timothy Keller's group, and I'm ready for them to wow me with all kinds of strategies and different tools that I could use to plant in the Northeast, this incredibly post-Christian area. And you know what? I walk into the room, and the first 2 months of the training, they say, "We're going to talk about the gospel." And at first I was kind of like, okay, I got it. I have a master's degree, 4 years that says all about law and gospel. Like, I think I'm good. But then I sat through that training and I read through Timothy Keller's book in Center City Church, his section on the gospel, and I was just blown away. I felt like I was hearing and learning the gospel for the first time again. And what I realized was this: the gospel, while it's simple, while it's something that you could share with a child, is something that is deep and it's profound. It's something that's not just meant as this entry-level spot to get into Christianity, but the gospel is literally the air we breathe. And when we understand the gospel, not just what it means for the world around us, but literally what it means for our life and our ministry, especially when we think about taking the gospel out in the places we live, work, and play, when we begin to really apply the gospel to ourselves and to our context, and not just the people around us, what you begin to see is that the gospel has a profound effect on your life. And when it has a profound effect on your life, it'll have a profound effect on the people around you. So yes, we're going to take actually 2 sections of this training, and we're going to go through the gospel. In this first section, we're going to take an opportunity to just understand what the gospel is. We're going to look at some of Paul's words about the gospel and kind of a framework that you can use not only for your own life, but you could actually share with somebody else when it comes to the gospel. This is not everything about the gospel, but I feel like it's the most important parts and something that you could definitely build off of as you begin to understand the gospel more and more in your life and you begin to experience it and live it. And then finally, what we're going to do in part 2 of our gospel training is we're actually going to talk about what it looks like to contextualize the gospel, because so many of us, we only have one simple form of the gospel that we use. And for many, especially if you're in like a church like ours, like the Lutheran Church, it's that justification model, that courtroom model of the gospel. But the gospel, the good news of God, is actually far more robust than that. And so what we want to do is we want to give you some other ways of looking at the gospel and how you would contextualize the gospel into the communities in which God is leading you, the places you live, work, and play. So that's going to be part 2 of this gospel training. So don't skip through this, but rather take some time to just sit and soak in what the gospel means, not just for the people around you, but for your life today. So let's continue with this training on the gospel.